Paradox Rift is the brand new expansion that is one of the most game-changing sets the Pokemon TCG has ever seen. With so many powerful combos, the trading card game may never be the same again. What's up everyone, Smart TCG here, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 decks heading into the brand new format with Paradox Rift. If you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We're going to be starting at number 10 and then we're going to work our way all the way up to number 1. If you think I missed a deck or you think there's something that should be on here, make sure to let me know in the comments. The format is completely changing with this set and there's so many new decks to talk about, and I think a lot of them are very, very powerful. All right, let's hop into it. First off, I want to give a huge shout out to my sponsor, GameGrid. Are you looking for Paradox Rift products shipped directly to your door? Make sure to check out GameGridSLC.com for the best trading card game products on the market. They have some of the best prices and a wide selection of singles, booster boxes, and more. You can use code SMARTTCG for 5% off at checkout on all orders, and it's also one of the best ways to support me as a creator. Hopping to number 10 here, we have Gholdengo EX. Gholdengo EX is a brand new card from the Paradox Rift expansion, and it has a ton of potential. Its attack, Make It Rain, deals 50 times 50 for every energy that you discard from your hand, and coin bonus allows you to build your hand up, allowing you to draw extra cards. The support engine in this deck is B-Barrel with that Industrious Incisors, along with Radiant Greninja's Concealed Cards, which allow you to build your hand to find those pieces to get tons of energy into the hand, to then use Make It Rain to discard them. I've decided to include Cynthia's Ambition as one of the main draw supporters in this deck because our deck is a hand building deck, so it doesn't necessarily really want to be playing things like Professor's Research, because you can be discarding important resources like your energy retrieval cards that you need to be able to take a knockout after knockout. It's actually another reason as to why Worker is one of the heavier counts of supporters in this deck, is because one, it's very good versus paths. You can use that coin bonus or that concealed cards, but more importantly, it just draws cards and there's no really drawback to it. We've also included Earthen Vessel as well, one of the more talked about cards from the Paradox Rift expansion that has so much potential in so many different decks, and this is one of the best decks to pair Earthen Vessel with. Earthen Vessel allows you just to discard a card from your hand, so you can be thinning out those extra VIP passes that you don't need, extra Pokemon that you might not need, and allows you to get those energies into the hand. You can even use Earthen Vessel just to discard energies, which then you can use Superior Energy Retrieval to get those back as well, which is another really cool combo that you can pull off. It's just an incredible card with so many uses in this deck. The main strategy of this deck is to use things like Pokestop to burn through the deck as quickly as possible, get energies in the discard pile, and then use things like Superior Energy Retrieval over and over again to use that Make It Rain attack. One of the issues that this deck does sometimes run into is it is a little bit more difficult to reach those one-shot numbers as opposed to something like Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao EX is able to, for 6 energy, deal 360, as Gholdengo unfortunately only does 50. For 6 energy, you're only dealing 300, which is not a great number to hit, because you want to be hitting at least 360 to be able to knock out things like Charizard, Gardevoir, VMAX, and more. So you do need one more energy, which does mean that you can sometimes struggle to get to that number a little bit more frequently. However, you are a stage 1 deck as opposed to a stage 2 deck, so you don't need to worry about having to use something like Rare Candy to get into Baxcalibur. So both decks, kind of have their positives and negatives, and it's I think it's important to kind of look at both of them and see, okay, do you want to play a little bit more of a high rolly but more potential deck in something like Chien-Pao, or do you want to play a little bit more consistent deck but sometimes could struggle a little bit more to reach those numbers with something like Gholdengo? However, when both of them get set up, they're incredibly powerful. It's just, can you get set up? And that's the big question that I think this deck has, which is one of the things that is going to potentially hold it back. But when it gets going, it's incredibly powerful and I think has all the potential in the world. Alrighty, hopping into number 9 here, we have another brand new deck, Iron Valiant EX. This is a deck that has been getting tons of talk, and I think it has a lot of potential. This card is absolutely fantastic against those small HP decks, things like Lost Zone Toolbox, Gardevoir, which already get hurt by things like Iron Hands, is going to get punished by Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant has that fantastic ability, Take on Bits, which once in your turn, when this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is incredibly powerful when you get multiple Iron Valiants down on the field and you're using things like Switch and Switch Cart to be able to go into them over and over. Realistically, you'll have 2 to 3 in play, which means that every single turn you're being able to throw 60 damage on the field wherever you want, which is just absolutely crazy. Now, how you power this up is with Xatu. Xatu as well, being a brand new card from Paradox Rift, is absolutely fantastic. With that ability, once during your turn, you may attach a basic psychic energy card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, and if you do this, you get to draw 2 cards. So very reminiscent to Shadow Rider VMAX's ability, which allows you to attach tons of energies from your hand onto the field and also get that effect of drawing cards, which is just so powerful. Iron Jugulus as well is a really cool new Pokemon with that homing headbutt, which for 3 energies, you're able to deal 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on them. So you're starting to notice a trend here. Your goal is to basically flood the board with tons of damage onto the field, and then use really cool things like Radiant Alakazam, Medicham, Iron Jugulus, and more to be able to manipulate the damage on the field to take tons of prize cards at once, board wiping opponents. Kind of similar to the Rapid Strike Urshifu and Teleon deck, just a little bit different, and I think a little bit more low maintenance, as you're not, relying on evolving into tons of different evolution Pokemon and stuff like that, which is one of the really nice things about this deck. You also have the Future Booster Energy Capsule, which is very cool because it gives your future Pokemon free retreat, and also your attacks do 20 more damage as well, which is very nice. Technical Machine De-Evolution as well is a great inclusion, which is easily searchable. Both Future Booster Energy Capsule and Technical Machine De-Evolution are both easily searchable with the Town Store, which allows you to de-evolve your opponent's Pokemon. So when you're playing up against that Charizard deck, when you're playing up against that Gardevoir deck, you can simply use that Town Store, find that Technical Machine De-Evolution, and you're going to be able to completely board wipe players. I see some people like not actually including this card in the deck, and I think it's just very good. I think, having this Technical Machine is going to come up in a lot of situations. Now, you might be wondering, this deck sounds pretty good. Why is it all the way down to number 9? Well, as I said, this deck really punishes evolution and small HP based decks. However, with cards like Iron Hands and Iron Valiant seeing so much play, potentially at the beginning of the format, we're going to see much less small HP Pokemon, which does kind of hurt Iron Valiant, because Iron Valiant is going to potentially change the formats into a format that might not be very conducive for it to seeing success. So I think that if a lot of players continue to play Lost Box, Charizard, Gardevoir as well, then I think this deck will be just fine. However, if a bunch of evolution based decks kind of die off and it just becomes big high HP 2 and 3 prize attackers, then Iron Valiant loses a little bit of what makes it so special. So I think as of right now, it's going to have a lot of potential. I think it's going to start off pretty well, especially at LAIC. I expected to see a lot of play, and I think there's a lot of wiggle room that this deck has. I think there's multiple different interesting tech cards and stuff like that you can play in it, but I think it has a lot of potential moving forward. Alrighty, hopping into our first old deck, we have Lost Zone Giratina V-Star. This deck has actually been performing pretty well in Japan at some tournaments that have just started up with Paradox Rift Legal, and I do think it still has a lot of potential. You're pretty much the same Lost Zone Giratina deck as you were in the past. However, you have some pretty cool new cards. You have Counter Catcher, which is a great card when you are behind in the prize race. It is an item card Boss's Orders, which is incredibly powerful, and you also have the Technical Machine De-Evolution, which is really good to de-evolve your opponent's Pokemon, which works fantastically with Sableye. When you're using Sableye to damage a bunch of evolved Pokemon, then you can use that Technical Machine De-Evolution. You can completely cripple your opponent's board states. So I think this deck still has a lot of potential. I currently don't play the water energies as of right now. I don't think they're as needed, especially in a format with a lot more high HP basic Pokemon. Your Radiant Greninja's, Moonlight Shuriken is not going to come up as often right now. Overall, I think the deck is still very solid. I think Counter Catcher goes great in this deck because oftentimes you do fall behind because you are a little bit more of a slow Lost Box variant, but I do think this deck has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Alrighty, hopping to number 7 here, we have Fusion Mew VMAX. Fusion Mew VMAX is still one of the best decks in the format. No matter what people play to stop it, it still remains one of the best decks in the standard format. It gains Counter Catcher, which is very good, as oftentimes if your Mew VMAX gets knocked out in the early or middle portion of the game, you oftentimes fall behind a prize or two, giving you that option to use a Gust effect and also have the ability to use a supporter in the same turn, which is just incredibly powerful. You also gain Professor Turos as well, which is pretty much just AZ, except with a different name, which is also just insanely powerful as well. Being able to put any Pokemon on your field back into your hand is just so strong, because cards like Penny did see play in this deck, but you couldn't Penny MU VMAX. Now you can pretty much Penny MU VMAX. Yes, you do lose the energies on the Pokemon, unfortunately, which is the only drawback of this card. However, losing a double turbo energy on MU VMAX is typically not the end of the world. You play 3 for a reason. So I could even maybe see this deck going up to 4 double turbo, just because Tauros is just such an important card in some situations and can completely shift games. But overall, yeah, Fusion Mew is still very good. I think with all the 2 prize base decks in the standard format that can easily be KO'd with a Meloetta power tablet, I think that this deck gets even better. You know, things like Lost Box are losing some popularity, which could sometimes cause issues to this deck, and I think cards like Spiritomb and Drapion will be at an all-time low, which does make Fusion Mew VMAX incredibly powerful. However, you do run into the situation where if you run into a couple Charizards, you could have a very rough tournament. So if you can dodge the Charizards, the deck has unlimited potential. However, that's one thing that you always have to be cautious of, and that's kind of the reason as to why this deck is not higher. But gaining Tauros and Countercatcher is just absolutely just incredible for this deck. Moving on to number 6, we have another Mew VMAX variant. This is going to be the DTE Mew VMAX variant. This deck still incredibly powerful. Judge Path is amazing. Professor Tauros scenario as well is a wonderful inclusion in this deck. Having Grabber, you can cheese games against Charizard decks with the Luxray Grabber combo, so this deck does have a significantly better matchup against that. You have things like Countercatcher as well, which are very powerful paired up with Judge and Path. It has everything it needs to be successful. The only thing holding this deck back is Spiritomb. If players decide to play Spiritomb because Mew VMAX gets too hyped up right before, let's say, the Latin American International Championships, then you can run into some problems. So I think this deck is incredibly powerful if people don't tech Spiritomb. However, if people do, it's going to run into some issues. But having cards like Tauros and Countercatcher in it is going to help it out so much. It's still a fantastic deck. Mew truly never dies. Alrighty, hopping into number 5 here, we have Lugia V-Star. Lugia V-Star seems to never die, and it just got significantly better with the brand new set Paradox Rift. Paradox Rift added Iron Hands EX, which is absolutely devastating against lightning weak Pokemon and also versus those small 1 prize decks, and it more importantly though got another way to discard Archeopsis, and that is Earthen Vessel. Having another way to discard Archeopsis makes this deck so much more consistent, and it allows you to get those light energies out of the deck to be able to attach to Iron Hands. The deck is still fantastic. It can beat mostly anything. Getting Iron Hands gives it more depth, and it seems that every single set Lugia gets more and more cards that makes it more viable, and this set is no exception. It just keeps getting better. I think this deck is going to see a lot of success still moving forward. I think it's very underrated. I know a lot of people have been focusing on like the entirely just, you know, like brand new archetypes. However, Lugia, as you know, have been around for quite some time. Multiple different variants: the single strike variant, the colorless variant, we've seen the Duraludon variant, this single strike Urshifu VMAX variant, the old variant as well with things like Powerful Energy. There's been so many variants. Sometimes people forget that this deck is still one of the best decks in the format when you see all the new cards come out, and this set helps it out quite a bit. I think it's still really good. I think a lot of people are underrating it, and I think it's one of the best decks in the format. When it sets up, it's pretty nice. Alright, hopping into number 4 here, we have Miraidon EX. Now, Miraidon EX gets even better as well. Notice a trend here. It seems like a lot of old decks are getting even better with all the brand new cards, and this one is especially the case here. We have Iron Hands EX with that amp you up very much attack, which is absolutely incredible in this deck, being able to fix actually this deck's biggest problem matchup, which was the Lost Zone matchup, paired up with Bravery Charm, giving your Iron Hands almost 300 HP. It's just so incredibly difficult to deal with. And also Tapu Koko EX with that Revenge Shock to be able to paralyze your opponent is actually very powerful, paired up with something like Judge and Iono and Path of the Peak. You still have Raichu, you still have Flying Pikachu, you still have the Flaffy engine, you got pretty much everything you need. You also have Professor Tauros scenario as well, which is very good to be able to remove damaged Pokemon off the field and get those lightning energies into the discard pile to then use Flaffy's Dynamotor to recharge them. I think Professor Tauros is absolutely insane in this deck, and I think is going to definitely come up in many situations. Overall, the deck's still good. I mean, not a whole lot else to say about it. It's an amazing deck, and gaining Iron Hands and Tapu Koko definitely gives it more depth that I think the deck needed. I think that a lot of players viewed the deck as too linear, too easy to play. You know, you kind of always could, you know, pretty much always predict what they were going to do. I think these two cards gives it that extra depth that I think is going to make it perform so much more better, and most importantly, more consistently, because this is a deck that will sometimes show up and dominate a tournament, then kind of disappear, then show up and dominate, then kind of disappear. I think this is going to really kind of stabilize like this deck's future, and I do think that it will remain incredibly powerful. Alrighty, hopping into number 3, one of my personal favorite decks in the brand new format, we have Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon is just so incredibly powerful with that Frenzied Gouging and also that Calamity Storm attack. Both attacks absolutely fantastic. You have one of the best engines in the game with Professor Sada's Vitality, allowing you to attach energies from your discard pile onto your field and then draw cards. You have Dark Patch as well. You have the Pokestop engine. You have Earthen Vessel. It just has absolutely everything that it needs to be successful. I've also decided to include the Brute Bonnet as well, which allows you to hit for 220, obviously with Calamity Storm, and then the Brute Bonnet gets you that poison onto the field that deals that 230. I do include the Vitality Band as well, but there are going to be some situations where you can't find the Vitality Band, so having the Brute Bonnet to poison both Pokemon is still very, very nice to get that little extra 10 damage that you need. Rest of the list here is relatively standard. I would say the interesting card that I have on the list that some people aren't playing is Arven. I think Arven's incredibly powerful. Being able to get the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule or Vitality Band just seems very, very good, and I think that card's going to come up in a lot of scenarios. I think Professor Tauros is great as well, allowing you to heal your Pokemon and also get those dark energies into the discard pile. Works absolutely beautifully with things like Dark Patch and Professor Sada's Vitality. I only have 11 dark energy in the deck. I know some people are playing 12, some people even playing 13. I think that 11 is fine, just because you have Sadas, you have Dark Patch, you have like Radiant Greninja, you have Pokestop as well. You just have so many different ways to throw energies in the discard pile that I think that 11 is okay. You could even see going down to 10, but as of right now, I think 11 is a good count. Overall, this deck is absolutely fantastic, and I think it deserves its spot in the top 3. This is definitely one of the top decks to look out for heading into the Latin American International Championships. Up at number 2 here, we have Charizard EX. Charizard EX gets way better with this brand new set, and I'm going to go over exactly what cards truly make it one of the best decks in the format to be feared. Charizard EX, still a fantastic card. Infernal Rain, Burning Darkness, 2 incredible effects, a fantastic attack, a fantastic ability. You have Pidgeot, obviously, with that quick search. However, it gains some cards that really make it special now. You gain the Technical Machine Evolution, which allows you to choose up to 2 of your bench Pokemon, and for each of those Pokemon, you get to evolve them. So that's why we went up to a second Charmeleon and also Pidgeotto, because on that very first turn of the game, you can pull off that Technical Machine Evolution, which is searchable by Arven, and evolve into Charmeleon and Pidgeotto, which just makes your deck so much more consistent. One of the big problems with Charizard is that it admittedly can brick. It just sometimes does not set up properly. So having this Technical Machine is just so good, and I think is going to really stabilize this deck and really give it a consistent game plan in pretty much every single game. That is the main reason as to why I cut down to 3 Rare Candy. I think you can get away with 3 Rare Candy even if you don't use the Technical Machine, but getting that turn 1 Technical Machine off is just so incredibly powerful. I think Charizard should be pretty much going second every single game now, because if you're able to go turn 1 Technical Machine, your board state is just going to be so powerful heading into that second turn when you're able to easily evolve your Pokemon. Professor Tauros scenario is also just an insane card in this deck. Being able to heal a damaged Charizard is just absolutely game changing. Charizard, one of the nice traits about it is that it's almost impossible to knock out in one hit, aside from very few Pokemon that are able to do it. Pretty much everything is going to be 2 or 3 shot in it, meaning if you can just Professor Tauros, wipe all that damage off the field, you're going to be completely changing games. So I think Professor Tauros is an absolute staple. You're able to find it easily with Pidgeot when you need it. And I think this deck has everything it needs to be successful, especially with decks like Lost Box and Gardevoir, which are 2 of its little bit more difficult matchups being pushed out of the format. Largely, Charizard pretty much has free reign to do whatever it wants. It's an incredibly powerful deck, and I think it's going to perform exceptionally well heading into LAIC. Alrighty, coming in at number 1 here, probably to not a whole lot of people's surprise, we have Iron Hands. We have Chen Pao Iron Hands. I think Iron Hands is most easily paired up with Chen Pao because of that Baxcalibur's Super Cold. You have also the brand new card Earthen Vessel as well, which is easily searchable by Irida, which is going to allow you to attach that lightning energy, and then you can use the Baxcalibur Super Cold to attach those waters to be able to use that attack amp you very much to take multiple prize cards. It's pretty much just Chen Pao with another option. It's Chen Pao, but even better, because one of Chen Pao's biggest problems was, things like Lost Zone Toolbox, for example. Even Gardevoir, which is a decent matchup, could sometimes get a little bit scary if they set up really well. So having Iron Hands just makes it so much better. All those matchups just get way better. I don't even think you need Canceling Cologne anymore, because Canceling Cologne was a solid strategy, but wasn't necessarily always achievable. Sometimes you just couldn't find the pieces to pull off that combination against one prize decks. Now you just have Iron Hands, which is very easy to pull off against one prize decks. I originally didn't have cross switchers in the list, but I decided to add them back in. I just think it's so powerful with something like Pokestop. Being able to go turn 2 Iron Hands cross switcher is just absolutely ridiculous. You unfortunately do have to cut down to 1/1 B barrel, though, because you have to include the Iron Hands and also the Lightning Energies, but that's typically not the biggest of deals, and you still have Hisuian Heavy Ball as well. Not a whole lot else to say, except this deck, in my opinion, is the best deck in format. It's just absolutely amazing. It has everything that it needs to be successful. You can go big with Chen Pao when you need to hit those, big numbers on those Charizards of the worlds, or those Arceuses, or those Lugias, and you can use Iron Hands to punish those small HP Pokemon. It can pretty much deal with any deck in the format as long as it sets up. It's one of the big problems that Chen Pao has always ran into, is that sometimes it just doesn't set up properly. But now, if you are able to set up, especially with things like Earthen Vessel, which help out quite a bit, it just is truly one of the most powerful decks I think we've seen in a very long time. Anyways, that is going to do it today for the video. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you're looking for any of these brand new cards, or just any of these cards from the brand new set or old cards, make sure to go check out GameGridSLC.com. You can use code SMARTTCG for 5% off. The link will be in the description, and it's one of the best ways to support me as a creator. But anyways, that is going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for all the support as always. This is SmartTCG. I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out. If you're looking to improve your game, I do offer coaching on Metafy. I was ranked in the top 16 ranked players in the world last season, and I know what it takes to improve your game. My students want to combine 3 regionals last year, and I know what it takes to reach that next level. I do offer a free coaching consultation so you can get an idea whether or not coaching works for you. And along with that, I also have a singular sessions, training packages, and more. If you're looking to find out more information, feel free to book that free consultation, or also don't hesitate to shoot me a message on Discord. My Discord will be in the description. All right. Thanks for sitting around and listening to this. I appreciate it. This is SmartTCG. I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out.